I went to bed last night. One of the biggest questions I guess people wanted to ask, do white people have souls? Yes, they have souls. They're more lunaceptivity people, which makes them more of the oceanic tides and the water tides and the currency of the tides. Therefore, they are more dealing with the emotional sector, the hidden, deep, subconscious emotional sectors, because there's three levels to it. So the most deepest is the hidden subconscious, something that's so deep and buried within the emotional sector that they themselves are not aware of it. They call it epigenetics, right? The next is genetics. It is what's within the freshness of it all. It's the aspect of with anything and what it's tied to, but it's also aspect of the creatrix energy that it's got to be tied to. And usually in that area there is nothing created, but the revelation of self needing to come up higher. Then you have the upper layer, which is the electromagnetic self, right? And people become into the electromagnetic self, and they get a charge, they get a rush, they get a dopamine hit, they get it's the logical neurological center, and you know, and it's also a part of the vehicle of life is the electromagnetic magnetism of water conductor, of what water can conduct within the illusion, which is a part of the reality, right? So it's a pull on emotions that they really need to really check. It's a trigger here. Clapping of disorientation that leads to them falling into descending very easily into an emotional darkness that even they are not aware of until the crime has been committed, or until a something that is of a lesser entity has already took hold and is steering the ship for them, like and that's it, because they're leaning more of a water conductivity, electrical output, whereas we and more melanated people lean towards a more solar electrical conductor output. A more solar electrical conductor outlet. So the darker melanated you are, the more solar you are. But you're sitting here talking about somebody without a soul. Lack of melanin does not mean there is no soul. It means that the vehicle is not equipped to gain the solar energy through that means. It's more equipped to go through lunar receptivity, meaning they have a lot of shit to unpack. Whereas with us, it's the opposite. It's electrical conductor, and we have the soul energy. That means that we have a lot of shit that we need to express. You feel me? And that you're dormant, you're oppressed. Us is oppression. Them is repression. But yes, they have souls. And before you go, well, they're so this and that and the third. It doesn't matter if the patriarchy that stems is of mass incarceration and militarization, and it's also of patriarchy, colonialism, incarceration, and colonialization, incarceration, and the militarization, right? Patriarchy is those three things. It's those three things. Why? Because you treat everything as though it's a military strategic tactic of game. Meaning you want to literally, if you have the bigger weapons or the stronger body, you will overthrow it. And if it's a woman, you will kill it if it's on the front lines. Right? You'll degrade it as worthless and meaningless. Now, what does that look like in a dark skinned female versus a white woman? It looks like emotionally being drained and tormented and overworked in the military or in the white world, and being unalived as a black woman in the military. That's what it looks like. If you're taking the mass incarceration, the energy of everything being in prison and there being a time on the on, you know how they do time within the cells, time with your friends, homies, time outside on the rec, you know, in the yard, whatever they call it. You know, it's the same day in, day out. You know, you do that in your day-to-day existence in life. So what does that look like when the gang life of that life is a white supremacist group versus a black supremacist group? You have politics, KKK, policing and ICE agents on one end, and then on the other end you have Crips, Bloods, Folk Nation, you know, Land Kings, blah blah blah. You know, you have the hierarchies of power on the other end, or in our case, it would be the church would be included in that. You know, like and Masonic Order and Eastern Stars and stuff that you have black bodies involved in that are more clique mentality and game based. But they're both clique mentality and game based, and they all play the games of patriarchal politics. Which creates a mass prison cell and a militarization and desensitization for everybody, right? Which makes YNs, but the opposite of a YNs is a white boy school shooter. One just shoots up the community, the other one goes within the building and shoots up the school, but they get the same number and amount of people. And then you continue to go into the colonialism aspect, wanting to usurp a territorial aspect, and thinking that you have the right to. So you have the right to assert territorial aspects in all types of people and impose your belief systems and your ways and your creed of life onto all types of peoples. Both sides do that. It's just that when we're in Africa, we called it being civilized, having a civilization and coming out of the indigenous world to learn and expand your mind and your soul and your knowledge. And thus everybody having to come out of the villages and live a part of these civilizations that kept growing and usurping more territorial land with their buildings and architectures, pyramids. What you think was there before those pyramids were there? What you think was there before the Gaza and all those places was there? Those were people's homelands. Those were indigenous people that lived there too. Y'all think that civilization in the black world started, and it shamed the people of Set. The people of Set were indigenous people, and the people of Osiris were people of the Kemet of the pyramids. So they had already implemented a division. It had already been implemented before white people even came into the picture, that people who were indigenous were of a lesser than lifestyle, and people that were civilized and understanding and had all these wonderful inventions were of a higher authority and lifestyle. So that superiority complex came from black world, and that superiority complex at casteism and complex has been in all the worlds, including white man's world. So yes, we have, and we still do it to this day. There is nobody that's sitting here name branding everything. Everything's name brand, and when you don't wear some Nike and some Louis Vuitton and some Gucci, and you go and you put or some Adidas, and you go and put on something that ain't nobody ever heard of, you get picked on. You get picked on in your schools. You get picked on about it. If you're dark skinned, you get picked on for being extremely melanated by somebody who usually is not extremely melanated, and they will call you the N-word. But if you're also dark skinned, you will usually harbor the same hate and resentment of non-inclusivity that whites have, and you will harbor that hate until you become the perpetuator of that shit. Just like whites, when they are not included, they become envious and become the perpetuators of a serious epileptic rage that is expressed like a hidden. It comes the head out of nowhere when because it's so buried and repressed. It comes the head out in the middle of the woods when they ain't got nothing but one black body. Just like when you're a dark-skinned girl or dark-skinned man, you're extremely, it's already the head. You already got that funky-ass attitude. You're already going around with that funky-ass, hateful-ass shit. You're already exuding that type of pressure and energy. So what do we have to get to? We have to get to the softness and understanding of the softness of your layers. But it's hard to get to the softness and understanding the softness of later if you're using white man's emotions to be of being feeling threat and not included, to be your guiding force of energy, you're walking around feeling threatened and like you're never going to be included. So you become standoffish because of where you're at on the melanin train, and they become very much intrusive because of where they're at on the melanin claim. But it doesn't make you soulless, so it doesn't make them soulless. It makes you on the opposite spectrum of things. Now, I'm not saying this, I'm dark skinned. I know that what color I am. But I also know the effects of by seeing where I'm at in the middle. I also see the effects of the craziness that comes with patriarchy and the colonialization, desensitization, militarization, and incarceration tactics that they have placed on humanity, and then said life is suffering. No, life itself is suffering, but nobody should be sufferable or the cause of suffering. You understand? Patriarchy, or the male-dominated world society, is the cause of sufferable suffering. Without the problems they create for you to have, you wouldn't have had many. And creating problems or manipulating the ways that people maneuver in this world is not tarot. It is Sortarius. And we do not practice Sortarius. We are not around here manipulating you with readings. We're just around here reading the shit and then telling you our opinion about it. We practice sortilege, but we are not Sortarius, okay? So before y'all quote biblical scriptures, we are not manipulators of our energy. It's a channel. We get a download. We speak what we got. We keep it pushing. And we say a few moments of our own shit behind it before closing out with our own way of chant, prayer, and mindfulness. Right? And that's all I want to say on that note. But thank you. I will be posting and reading a little bit, but that was for the one that wanted to know if they had souls. Yes, they have souls. They just aren't solar. They're lunarceptions. Like we have souls because we are magnified solar, but we get seasonal depression during the time of the winter solstice or the time of when lunarception is the rain, right? Because we don't harness that type of energy. But it doesn't mean we're not both electric, baby. We both have the propensity to take care of our environments.